Hey guys, tonight we dive into the brutal, ice-cold world of a creature that spends its entire life navigating between suffocation and starvation. The beluga whale. You've probably seen them in aquariums. Those gentle white giants with their perpetual smiles and curious eyes, gliding peacefully through crystal-clear tanks. But trust me, being a real wild beluga is nothing like that serene performance. It's a lifetime of threading frozen death traps, dodging apex predators, and holding your breath in water so cold it would stop your heart in minutes. So as we settle in, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy these deep dives into nature's harshest realities. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always amazing to see who's joining us from all across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a warm blanket, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Because where we're going, warmth is just a memory. You're born dark grey, smallish, and helpless in water, so cold it would kill a human in minutes. Forget crying for attention. Your first breath is a desperate gasp at the surface of the Arctic Ocean, where the air temperature hovers somewhere between painful and lethal. Your mother, exhausted from 14 months of pregnancy, has just given birth to you in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. Welcome to the world, little beluga. Hope you like ice, darkness, and the constant threat of suffocation. You weigh about as much as a large dog, but you're already swimming, because in this world, there's no time for a learning curve. Sink or swim isn't just an expression here. It's your first and most important life lesson. Your mother nudges you toward the surface every 30 seconds, because unlike land mammals who can breathe automatically, you have to consciously choose every single breath for the rest of your life. Forget about it once, and you're done. The Arctic doesn't care that you're newborn, confused, or still figuring out which way is up. The water around you is barely above freezing, your blubber layer is still developing, and somewhere in the dark depths below, orcas are listening for the high-pitched squeaks of vulnerable calves. That's you, by the way, vulnerable, squeaky, and broadcasting your location like a dinner bell. Your first few weeks are spent desperately trying to master 3 things: breathing, nursing, and not becoming someone else's meal. Your mother's milk is incredibly rich, nearly 40% fat, because you need to bulk up fast or die. There's no gradual introduction to solid food, no cozy nursing schedule. You drink when you can, surface when you must, and pray that the ice above you doesn't shift and seal off your access to air. And here's the really fun part, that you're born into a world where your main refuge, sea ice, is also your potential tomb. Those beautiful white floes floating above you, they can shift without warning, trapping entire pods underwater. Your playground is also a death trap, and you're just learning to navigate it with flippers you can barely control. Welcome to beluga childhood. It's cold, it's dangerous, and statistically speaking, about 1 in 10 of you won't make it past your first year. But hey, at least the water's... No, wait, even that's trying to kill you. If you thought those first few weeks were rough, congratulations on your optimism. Now comes the real education, learning to hold your breath like your life depends on it, because it absolutely does. While human babies are figuring out solid food and taking their first steps, you're mastering the art of not drowning in an environment that's actively trying to freeze and crush you. Your diving lessons start early, and they're not optional. Your mother takes you down 10 feet, 20 feet, deeper. Each time your little lungs compress, your heart rate slows, and your body screams that this is wrong, that mammals aren't supposed to do this. But you're not just any mammal, you're a beluga, and holding your breath isn't a party trick, it's survival. At first, 30 seconds underwater feels like forever. Your body panics, your flippers thrash, and you bolt for the surface, gasping and squeaking. But slowly, painfully, you learn to override every instinct that says breathe now. A minute becomes 2, 2 becomes 5. Your record as a juvenile, maybe 10 minutes if you're really pushing it. Your mother can disappear for 20 minutes at a time, diving 300 meters down into the black depths where the pressure would crush a human skull like an eggshell. And it's not just about holding your breath. You're learning to navigate in complete darkness using clicks and whistles, teaching your brain to build a mental map from echoes bouncing off fish, ice, and the occasional predator. Echolocation sounds magical until you realize you're basically learning to see with sound while oxygen deprived and half frozen. Your head aches constantly from the concentration. Meanwhile, every dive is a gamble. Go down too deep, stay down too long, and you might not have enough oxygen to make it back up. Surface in the wrong place. And you might find solid ice where there should be a breathing hole. The Arctic Ocean isn't just cold and dark, it's a three-dimensional maze that changes constantly, and you're navigating it with baby lungs and a brain that's still developing. But here's the beautiful, terrifying part, when you do get it right. When you finally nail that perfect dive and surface exactly where you planned, there's this moment of pure triumph. Your first successful deep dive feels like conquering the world. Your mother's approving whistle sounds like applause. For just a moment, the Arctic feels less like a death trap and more like home. Then reality crashes back. Another lesson, another dive, another test of how long you can push your tiny body before it gives up. Because in the world of a young beluga, there's no such thing as good enough. There's only deep enough, long enough, and quiet enough to survive another day. Just when you're getting the hang of this whole not drowning thing, the Arctic decides to remind you who's really in charge. Winter arrives like a sledgehammer wrapped in ice, and suddenly your already hostile world becomes absolutely murderous. The water temperature drops to just above freezing, which sounds manageable until you realize you're living in it 24 hours a day. Your blubber helps, sure, but you're still a juvenile. Your insulation is like wearing a light jacket in a walk-in freezer that never turns off. The cold seeps into your bones, slows your movements, makes every breath feel like wading through molasses. But the real terror, the ice above you, starts to thicken and spread. Those breathing holes that were your lifeline all summer, they're shrinking, moving, disappearing. What was once a reliable spot to surface becomes a solid ceiling of ice thick enough to stop a freight train. You learn to navigate by memory and desperation, racing between distant polonias, patches of open water that might stay unfrozen for a few more days, or might seal shut while you're down hunting. Every dive becomes a calculated risk. Go down for food, and you might come up to find your escape route gone. Your pod moves constantly now, following leads of open water that crack and shift like fault lines. Sometimes you travel for hours, surfacing every few minutes in gaps barely wide enough for your head. The ice groans and creaks around you, a symphony of pressure and movement that sounds like the world breaking apart, because in a way it is. And then there are the trap days, days when the wind shifts or the current changes, and suddenly your pod finds itself in a shrinking pool of open water surrounded by miles of solid ice. You can hear it in the adults' calls, panic barely held in check. Everyone surfaces more often, breathing harder, clicking frantically as they search for an exit that might not exist. You've seen what happens when there is no exit. Dark shapes trapped under the ice, motionless, polar bears, waiting patiently at the few remaining breathing holes, knowing that eventually you'll have to surface. The lucky ones suffocate quickly. The unlucky ones become dinner for something that outweighs them by several hundred pounds and hasn't eaten in weeks. But when your pod does find that crack, that miracle lead of open water that connects you back to safety, the relief is overwhelming. You surface and breathe like it's the first time, feeling the cold air burn your lungs in the most beautiful way possible. You've cheated death again, threading the needle between suffocation and freedom. Winter in the Arctic isn't just a season for a beluga, it's a months-long endurance test, where the margin for error is exactly zero, and the price of failure is everything. You're learning that your world doesn't just challenge you, it actively hunts you. You thought ice and cold were your biggest problems. That's adorable. Meet your Arctic neighbors, and trust me, they're not here to welcome you to the neighborhood. First up, the orcas, killer whales, that make great white sharks look like goldfish. These aren't the playful, intelligent cetaceans from documentaries. These are 30-foot engines of destruction that hunt in coordinated packs and consider beluga calves a delicacy. When orcas show up, your entire world changes in seconds. The adults in your pod fall completely silent. No clicks, no calls, no echolocation, just dead quiet terror as everyone tries to become invisible in the water. You learn to recognize the sound of their approach, those deep, powerful clicks that cut through the water like sonar from hell. Your mother pushes you toward the shallows, toward river mouths where the big killers can't follow, but sometimes the shallows are miles away. And sometimes you don't hear them coming until it's too late. When orcas attack, It's not clean or quick. They're intelligent enough to toy with their prey, coordinated enough to cut off escape routes, and strong enough to launch a full-grown beluga clean out of the water. Then there are the polar bears, 800 pounds of fur, claws, and patience, waiting at your breathing holes. They've figured out the game. You have to surface eventually, and when you do, they'll be there. A polar bear can wait motionless for hours, perfectly camouflaged against the white ice, until your head pops up for that crucial breath, one swipe of those claws, and your journey ends before you even realize what happened. But here's what makes it really terrifying. Both predators have learned to hunt you specifically. Orcas know your migration routes, your feeding grounds, your escape tactics. Polar bears have memorized where belugas surface, how long you can hold your breath, exactly when you'll be most vulnerable. You're not just prey, you're studied, targeted, hunted by creatures that have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing your kind. And the worst part, you can't fight back. You're not built for combat. No teeth designed for defense, no speed that can outrun an orca, no way to break through ice if a polar bear blocks your breathing hole. Your only weapons are group cooperation, local knowledge, and pure luck. When predators show up, you run, hide, and pray you're not the unlucky one they single out. Sometimes, though, your pod gets lucky. An orca patrol passes by without detecting you. A polar bear gives up and wanders off to hunt seals instead. In those moments when the immediate danger passes, there's this collective exhale from your pod. Calls start up again, cautiously. Life resumes. Carefully, you surface and breathe normally, grateful that you're still alive to feel the burning cold air in your lungs. But the relief never lasts long, because in the Arctic, there's always another predator, another threat, another reason to stay alert. Your childhood isn't just about learning to swim and dive, it's about learning to live in constant, calculated fear. You're about 3 years old now, and your dark grey baby skin is finally starting to lighten. Congratulations, you're officially becoming white, which sounds lovely until you realize it's happening because your body is literally stressed beyond its design limits. See, that color change isn't just cosmetic. It's your body's way of saying, well, we've survived this long in this frozen hellscape. Might as well commit to the aesthetic. Your blubber layer is thickening. Your diving skills are improving. But your body is already showing wear. You're 3 years old with the stress markers of a middle-aged office worker during tax season. Your growth is stunted compared to warmer water relatives. Your bones are denser, stronger, but also heavier, a trade-off for surviving in crushing depths. Food is a constant, gnawing anxiety. You need thousands of calories a day just to maintain your body temperature. But finding them is like playing the world's deadliest game of hide and seek. Fish don't exactly line up to be eaten in the Arctic. They hide under ice, dart through dark depths, and disappear into underwater crevices where your bulky body can't follow. You're learning to hunt in water so murky from river silt that you can barely see your own flippers, relying entirely on echolocation that gets fuzzy when you're hungry, tired, or stressed, which, let's be honest, is pretty much always. And here's the really fun part. Even when you do catch something, it might be slowly poisoning you. The fish you're eating carry centuries of accumulated toxins, mercury, PCBs, chemical pollutants that work their way up the food chain and settle permanently in your growing blubber. Every meal is a tiny dose of long-term damage. Your liver is working overtime to process toxins that wouldn't exist in a natural world. Your immune system is fighting battles it was never evolved to handle. But you're also developing something beautiful, your voice. Belugas are called sea canaries for a reason, and you're learning to sing in frequencies that can travel for miles underwater. Each pod has its own dialect, its own musical signature, and you're absorbing it like a sponge. Your calls aren't just communication, they're identity, culture, family history, encoded in sound. When your pod spreads out to forage, you stay connected through these haunting melodies that echo through the dark water. A low whistle means I'm here. A rising trill means food over here. A sharp click sequence means danger, everyone disappear. You're becoming fluent in a language of survival, learning to say hello, goodbye, and run for your life in the same breath. Some days when the hunting is good and the predators are elsewhere, you almost catch glimpses of joy, playing with kelp, racing other juveniles, mimicking the adults' more complex songs. For brief moments, the Arctic feels less like a survival course and more like home. Your pod surfaces together in a patch of calm water, breathing in unison, and there's this sense of belonging that makes all the suffering feel purposeful. Then a boat engine cuts through the water, or ice shifts overhead, and reality crashes back. You're growing harder, learning that every moment of peace is temporary, every breath is a gift, and every day you survive is a small miracle in a world designed to break you. You're hitting adolescence now, and just like human teenagers, everything is suddenly more awkward, more painful, and way more complicated. Except in your case, the complications can literally kill you. Your body is changing rapidly. You're getting bigger, stronger, but also hungrier, so much hungrier. You need 20% more calories than you did as a calf. But your hunting grounds are shrinking every year. Climate change is shifting fish populations north, ice patterns are becoming unpredictable, and shipping lanes are carving up your ancestral feeding routes like highways through a forest. Your metabolism is revving up just as your grocery store is going out of business. Then there's the social pressure. Young males in your pod are starting to wander, testing boundaries, challenging the older bulls. You're caught between following the safety of your mother's group and the growing urge to explore on your own. But independence in the Arctic isn't like leaving for college. It's like deciding to walk a tightrope, blindfolded over a pit of hungry lions. One wrong turn, one missed breathing hole, and there's no rescue crew coming. The worst part, your body is betraying you in new and creative ways. Your voice is changing, cracking at the worst possible moments when you're trying to communicate danger or location. Your echolocation clicks are getting deeper but less precise, like learning to use a new instrument right when you need it most. You're bumping into things, misjudging distances, clicking frantically as your brain adjusts to processing these new acoustic signatures. And let's talk about the noise, human noise. Ships are getting bigger, louder, more frequent in your Arctic highways. Their engines and sonar systems are like someone screaming directly into your ears while you're trying to have a conversation in a library. Your elaborate songs, refined over millions of years of evolution, are being drowned out by cargo vessels that couldn't care less about your family reunions. You find yourself shouting just to be heard, burning extra energy on calls that used to be effortless whispers. Some days, the cacophony is so overwhelming that your pod just stops talking. You surface in complete silence, breathing hard, waiting for the mechanical thunder to pass. In those moments, the isolation is crushing. You're surrounded by family, but unable to connect. Like being at a party where everyone's speaking a language you suddenly can't understand. But then, miraculously, the engines fade, the water clears, your mother's familiar call echoes through the depths, and suddenly you remember why you keep fighting. Your pod reunites with soft whistles and gentle touches, rubbing against each other like they're checking that everyone's still there, still whole. These moments of quiet connection become precious, stolen treasures in an increasingly noisy world. You're learning that growing up as a beluga means losing innocence, one sense at a time. First your eyes adjusted to permanent twilight, then your skin toughened against the cold. Now your ears are learning to filter signal from noise, to find your family's voices in an ocean that's getting louder and more chaotic every year. Adolescence isn't just about becoming an adult. It's about holding on to who you are while everything familiar becomes uncertain. Welcome to summer in the Arctic, where the ice finally loosens its death grip, and you get to experience what passes for vacation in the beluga world. And by vacation I mean a frantic race against time to eat, mate, molt and socialize before the ice prison slams shut again. Your pod surges into the shallow estuaries, like refugees fleeing a war zone, which honestly isn't far from the truth. These river mouths and coastal shallows become beluga central, hundreds of individuals converging in waters warm enough that you can actually feel your extremities again. The water here might hit a balmy 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which feels like a tropical paradise after months in near-freezing depths. You can almost relax. Almost. First item on the summer agenda, shedding your skin like some kind of Arctic nightmare. All that yellowish, dead skin you've accumulated all winter. Time for it to go. You rub against every rock, every piece of gravel, every rough surface you can find, peeling off layers like the world's least pleasant spa treatment. The shallow waters turn cloudy, with millions of skin cells from hundreds of whales all molting simultaneously. It's gross, it's necessary, and it feels amazing, like finally being able to scratch an itch you've had for months. But even summer comes with its own special flavor of terror. These estuaries are tidal, which means your warm, shallow paradise disappears twice a day. Miss the tide change, and you're stranded on mudflats that stretch for miles, baking under the midnight sun while polar bears pace the shoreline, like they're waiting for dinner delivery. You learn to read the water, to feel the current shift, to know exactly when your safety window is closing. Then there's the pollution cocktail. You're swimming in, these river mouths collect everything that drains off the land. Agricultural runoff, industrial chemicals, urban waste. The same fresh water that makes these areas livable also makes them toxic. You're trying to heal, grow, and reproduce in water that's slowly accumulating heavy metals in your tissues. Your summer spa day is also a slow-motion poisoning session, and there's nowhere else to go. The feeding, though, when it works, it's incredible. Schools of capelin, runs of salmon, massive congregations of fish, taking advantage of the brief Arctic summer. You gorge yourself, trying to pack on enough blubber to survive another winter. Some days the hunting is so good you actually feel satisfied, full, content, in a way that's almost forgotten. Your pod feeds together, celebrates together, and for precious moments, survival feels less like desperation and more like abundance. Young belugas are playing, practicing their hunting techniques, learning the complex social dynamics that will keep them alive. Adults are courting, mating, preparing for calves that will be born into next year's ice maze. There's laughter in the water. Yes, actual laughter like calls, as families reunite and catch up on a winter's worth of stories. But summer in the Arctic is cruel in its brevity. Just as you're settling in, just as the warmth starts to feel normal, you can sense it ending. The days grow shorter, the water begins to cool, and ice starts forming on still nights. Your precious refuge is about to become a memory, and soon you'll be back in the depths, racing between breathing holes, wondering if you'll see another summer. The cycle begins again. But at least you're stronger now, fatter, ready for whatever fresh hell winter decides to serve up. You've been playing this survival game for nearly a decade now, and just when you think you understand the rules, humans decide to completely rewrite them. Welcome to the modern Arctic, where your ancestral highways have become industrial shipping lanes, and your quiet feeding grounds sound like underwater construction sites. Those massive cargo ships and tankers aren't just passing through anymore, they're using your migration routes as permanent highways. Ice that used to block these passages for most of the year is melting earlier and freezing later, opening up a marine superhighway right through your living room. The engine noise from a single container ship can be heard underwater for literally hundreds of miles. Imagine trying to have a conversation while someone operates a jackhammer 3 feet from your head, except the jackhammer never stops, and your life depends on that conversation. Your echolocation, refined through millions of years of evolution, becomes useless static. You click frantically, trying to navigate, but the returning echoes are drowned in mechanical thunder. Fish scatter from the noise, diving deeper or fleeing entirely, taking your dinner with them. You're essentially hunting blind and deaf, while burning extra calories just to communicate over the racket. It's like being forced to play the most important game of your life while someone shines strobe lights in your eyes and blasts death metal directly into your brain. But the ships aren't just noisy, they're dangerous in ways your instincts never prepared you for. These floating cities move faster than anything in your world, and they don't dodge. You've learned to recognize the deep thrumming that means something massive is approaching, but sometimes you misjudge the speed or direction. Propeller strikes are becoming grimly common, leaving belugas with horrific gashes that either kill immediately or lead to slow, infected deaths. Then there's the wake turbulence that tosses you around like a toy, the chemical pollution that leaks from every hull, and the constant grinding stress of living in what's become an industrial zone. Your stress hormones are permanently elevated now. Scientists would call it chronic stress syndrome if they could measure it. You'd call it Tuesday. The really insidious part is how the noise changes your behavior in ways you don't even realize. You start avoiding traditional feeding areas because they've become too loud. You change migration timing, trying to move when ship traffic is lighter. You abandon important social gatherings because the communication just doesn't work anymore. Slowly, subtly, you're being forced out of your own home by an invasion of steel and diesel. Sometimes, though, you catch a break, ship traffic clears, engines fade into the distance, and suddenly the ocean returns to something like natural quiet. In those blessed moments, you remember what your world used to sound like. Your pod's calls ring clear and true, echolocation works like precision sonar, and you can actually hear fish moving in the distance. These glimpses of the old world are heartbreaking in their beauty, reminders of what you've lost and what your ancestors took for granted. But those moments are becoming rarer, shorter, more precious. The shipping traffic only increases as the ice continues to retreat. Your ocean is being carved up by routes and schedules that have nothing to do with your survival, and everything to do with human commerce moving faster and cheaper through your melting home. You're learning to live in a world that's being transformed around you, whether you adapt or not. You're an adult now, fully white, battle-tested by a decade of Arctic survival, and theoretically at your prime, except your body is already showing the wear and tear of living in one of the planet's most hostile environments, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for years on end. Your teeth, which should be sharp tools for catching fish, are wearing down to nubs from constantly crunching through ice-covered prey, and accidentally biting frozen objects in murky water. Some are cracked from thermal shock, going from near-freezing water to slightly warmer river mouths repeatedly throughout your life. You're essentially trying to eat with a mouthful of broken, dulled tools, which makes hunting exponentially harder just when you need every advantage you can get. Your blubber layer, that crucial insulation keeping you alive, is becoming a toxic storage unit. Years of eating contaminated fish means your fat is now loaded with mercury, PCBs, and industrial chemicals that your liver can't process fast enough. You're literally carrying the pollution of 3 continents in your body, and it's affecting everything: your immune system, your reproduction, even your ability to think clearly. Your own fat, the thing keeping you alive, is slowly poisoning you. Then there are the parasites. Oh, the parasites, tiny organisms that have found ways to thrive in your lungs, your digestive system, your bloodstream. In a healthy ecosystem, your immune system could handle these hitchhikers. But chronic stress and toxic exposure have weakened your defenses. You're fighting wars on multiple fronts, against the cold, against starvation, against predators, and now against microscopic invaders that are literally eating you from the inside. Your joints ache constantly from the pressure changes of deep diving, the cold water making everything stiff and painful. Arthritis isn't just for old belugas anymore. It's starting in your 20s from the sheer physical punishment of your daily existence. Every dive is a little harder, every surface a little more relief, every movement a reminder that your body wasn't designed for this level of sustained abuse. But here's where it gets really cruel. Just as your body starts breaking down, life demands you do the hardest thing possible: reproduce, raise young, pass on your knowledge to the next generation. Female belugas facing pregnancy need 20% more calories when they can barely meet their current needs. Males burning energy competing for mates when they're already running on empty. The drive to continue your species conflicts directly with your own survival, and there's no good choice. Yet somehow, in quiet moments between crises, you still find reasons to continue. A perfect dive where everything clicks into place. A successful hunt that fills your belly. A moment of play with younger pod members that reminds you what joy feels like. Your family's voices calling through the darkness, letting you know you're not facing this alone. These small victories become the fuel that keeps you going when everything else is falling apart. You've survived longer than many of your species ever will. Accumulated knowledge that could keep others alive. Developed skills that took years to master. You're not just surviving anymore. You're becoming a repository of Arctic wisdom. A living database of how to thread the needle between all the ways this environment can kill you. But the price of that expertise is written in scars, worn teeth, and the deep ache in your bones that never quite goes away. You wake up one morning to a sound that shouldn't exist in your world. The rhythmic pounding of pile drivers, hammering massive steel foundations into the seafloor. Welcome to Arctic development, where your ancient feeding grounds are being transformed into industrial installations faster than you can adapt. The noise is beyond anything you've experienced. It's not just loud, it's physically painful. vibrating through your skull and disrupting your inner ear. Each impact feels like being punched in the head by a giant fist made of sound. Your pod scatters in panic, diving deep to escape the assault. But the pounding follows you down, bouncing off the seafloor and creating an acoustic hell that extends for miles in every direction. You can't think, can't communicate, can't navigate. You just flee. When the hammering finally stops hours later, your ears are ringing and your head throbs. Worse, you've been driven miles off course into unfamiliar waters where you don't know the safe routes or the good hunting spots. Your pod is scattered, calling frantically for each other with voices that sound strained and desperate. It takes days to regroup. Days you should have spent feeding, resting, preparing for the challenges ahead. This isn't a one-time event. It's the new reality. Oil platforms rising from the seafloor, like mechanical islands. Seismic surveys blasting the ocean with air guns to map underground resources. Icebreakers carving channels where ice should provide protection. Your home is being surveyed, drilled, mapped, and developed by creatures who see the Arctic not as a delicate ecosystem, but as a resource to exploit. The seismic surveys are particularly devastating. These airgun blasts are designed to penetrate miles into the Earth's crust, which means they're powerful enough to damage your hearing permanently. Each pulse is like a bomb going off underwater, and they repeat every few seconds for weeks at a time. Marine biologists call it acoustic trauma. You'd call it torture if you had the words. Fish flee the area entirely. Your pod becomes disoriented, stressed, unable to function normally. Some of your family members start showing strange behaviors after prolonged exposure. They beach themselves in shallow water, as if their internal navigation has been scrambled. They stop responding to calls, swimming in confused circles. A few disappear entirely, either dead from the stress or lost beyond any hope of reunion. You're watching your community be systematically destroyed by sounds that serve no purpose in your world. But the cruelest irony is that all this development is only possible because climate change is melting the ice that used to protect you. The same warming that's shrinking your habitat is opening it up to industrial exploitation. Your refuge is disappearing, and in its place comes an invasion of noise, pollution, and disruption that makes survival exponentially harder. Still, life finds moments of stubborn beauty. Between the industrial assaults, in the quiet hours when the machines pause, you rediscover fragments of the world you once knew. Your pod surfaces together in a patch of unpolluted water, breathing deeply of clean air, calling to each other with voices that ring clear and true. For just a moment, it feels like the old days, before the noise, before the fear became constant. These stolen moments of peace become increasingly precious, reminders of what you're fighting to preserve in a world that seems determined to destroy everything you've ever known. You're in your 20s now, and if you're female, your body has just decided to add another layer of complexity to your already impossible existence. Congratulations, you're now responsible for keeping 2 lives alive in an environment that's actively trying to kill one. 14 to 15 months of gestation in the Arctic Ocean isn't like carrying a baby anywhere else on Earth. Your growing calf is demanding 20% more energy when you're already struggling to find enough food for yourself. You need to hunt more, dive deeper, stay underwater longer, all while carrying extra weight and dealing with the hormonal chaos of pregnancy in a body that's already stressed to its breaking point. It's like running a marathon while carrying a backpack that gets heavier every day. And your timing has to be perfect. Give birth too early in the season, and your calf faces the full fury of Arctic winter with inadequate blubber reserves. Too late, and you miss the crucial summer feeding season, when both of you need to bulk up for survival. Your body is trying to coordinate this miraculous timing while dealing with unpredictable ice conditions, changing food availability, and the constant stress of dodging predators and industrial noise. Evolution fine-tuned this process over millions of years, but now the environmental cues are scrambled. The birth itself is terrifying. You're alone in the water, no doctors, no safety net, no guarantee that either of you will survive the next few critical hours. Your calf emerges dark grey and vulnerable into water that would kill a human in minutes. Their first breath has to happen at the surface, which means you need to guide them up immediately while you're exhausted and in pain. Miss that first breath, and you lose everything. Now you're responsible for teaching survival skills to someone who weighs 60 pounds, has no coordination, and squeaks constantly. Those adorable baby sounds. They might as well be dinner bells for every orca and polar bear within miles. You find yourself constantly torn between the instinct to protect and the need to let them learn. Push them too hard too fast, and they might not develop properly. Shelter them too much, and they won't survive when you're not there. Nursing is a 24-hour job that depletes your already strained energy reserves. Your milk is incredibly rich. It has to be. But producing it means you're burning through blubber reserves you'll desperately need for the next winter. You're essentially giving your life force to this tiny creature, while hoping you can find enough food to replace what you're losing. Many mothers don't make it through their calf's first year, the dual demands of feeding them and feeding yourself proving impossible to sustain. But then, in quieter moments, something magical happens. Your calf successfully completes their first solo dive and surfaces. With a look of pure triumph, they echo back your calls with increasing accuracy, learning the family dialect that connects them to generations of ancestors. They play, genuinely play, rolling and splashing in ways that remind you what joy looks like. In those precious moments, watching your child discover their place in this harsh world, the exhaustion and fear fade into background noise. You see the future of your species in their clumsy flippers and curious eyes. Despite everything, the cold, the predators, the noise, the pollution, life continues. Your investment of pain and energy has created something beautiful, hope, swimming beside you in the Arctic depths. You've spent decades now navigating this frozen gauntlet, and if you've made it this far, you're one of the lucky ones. Most belugas don't see 30. Fewer still reach the theoretical maximum of 60 years that your species could achieve in a perfect world. But this isn't a perfect world. This is the Arctic, and it's been testing you every single day since you drew your first breath. Your teeth are worn smooth now, making hunting a constant struggle. Your joints ache from tens of thousands of deep dives. Your body carries a lifetime accumulation of toxins that will stay with you until the end. The ocean around you sounds nothing like the one you were born into. Louder, busier, more chaotic with each passing year. The ice patterns your ancestors navigated for millennia have become unpredictable, dangerous, unreliable, yet somehow you're still here, still breathing, still surviving in a world that never stopped trying to kill you. As we reach the end of our journey together tonight, it's worth reflecting on what we've discovered about life as a beluga whale. Every single day is a masterclass in calculated risk. When to dive, where to surface, how long to hold your breath while the ice shifts overhead. Every breath is conscious, every meal is earned through struggle, every moment of safety is temporary and precious. You've lived your entire existence balancing on the knife's edge between survival and disaster, making split-second decisions that mean the difference between life and death. We've traveled from your terrifying birth in sub-zero waters through childhood lessons in not drowning, adolescent struggles with a changing body and a changing world. We've witnessed the daily reality of dodging apex predators, navigating industrial noise that scrambles your senses, and raising young in an environment that offers no mercy for mistakes. We've seen how climate change and human activity have transformed your ancient highways into obstacle courses of new dangers and disruptions. But perhaps most remarkably, we've also seen resilience in those moments of joy when your pod plays together in summer shallows, in the perfect coordination of a successful hunt, in the patient teaching of survival skills to the next generation, in your ability to find moments of beauty and connection even in the harshest circumstances imaginable. Your songs still echo through the depths, carrying forward millions of years of cultural knowledge and family bonds that industrial noise cannot completely silence. The truth is, most humans wouldn't last a single day in your world. The cold alone would stop us in minutes. The pressure of your diving depths would crush our lungs. The navigation challenges would leave us hopelessly lost. The constant vigilance required to avoid predators, ice traps, and industrial hazards would exhaust our minds long before our bodies gave out. We like to think we're tough, adaptable, resilient. But compared to what you endure as routine existence, our hardest days are gentle breezes. Your life is a testament to the incredible adaptability of life on Earth, and also a stark reminder of how quickly that life can be disrupted. You've survived ice ages and warming periods, but you've never faced changes this rapid, this comprehensive, this disconnected from natural cycles. You're living through an experiment in real time, and nobody knows how it ends. So the next time you see a beluga in an aquarium, remember this: you're looking at a master of survival, a creature that has spent its entire existence threading the needle between death and tomorrow. Those gentle eyes have seen wonders and terrors we can barely imagine. That graceful movement has been earned through a lifetime of brutal education in the realities of the Arctic Ocean. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of the most challenging lives on our planet. Sweet dreams. And remember, every breath you take without thinking about it is a luxury that a beluga whale has never known. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and maybe spare a thought for those still swimming in the cold, dark depths, holding their breath and hoping for one more day